any of the world's major spiritual traditions, to their origins, be it Christianity, Buddhism, or further back than that, you're going to find exhortations to care that are really, really clear in all of those. Mm-hmm. It's not a secret what we're supposed to be doing. But we've spent most of the intervening, depending on when you start counting, 2, 5 more 1,000 years, basically looking for loopholes. and being very successful in finding the loopholes. I think what a lot of these spiritual traditions are trying to tell us is, look, people, you're people. You're not animals. You are people. You have been given some powers that animals don't have. Powers of empathy, powers of caring, and so on and so forth. You need to figure out how to use these. You need to figure out how to be human. You need to elevate yourselves, and if some of these texts talk about having dominion over the earth, that's about the sense in which it's meant, because we do have the power to destroy it or not, as the case may be. I think we all have that innate ability. I think a lot of what we get to talk about really are artifacts of society, and particular societies at particular times, and the way roles that people get painted into. One of the clearest examples I can think of is my father. My father had a couple of heart attacks and strokes in his 60s, and had speech problems as a result of that. A little later, my mother was succumbing to Alzheimer's disease. My father became the complete caregiver. And it was difficult for him. He had to go out, interact with shopkeepers, and everything else, trying to keep the whole ball of wax running. I think the thing that hurt him the most was the idea so deeply implanted in his own head that what he was doing, even though he was doing it every day, doing all the little things, the changing diapers even, was that somehow this wasn't worthy.
Yes.
And I think that's terribly sad.
Yes.
That we should paint men with that brush. I think it's really just extremely unfortunate. I think we need to get past that, and I think we need to look at how we can all dig down a little further, get away from some of the, where I come from, it's called greed, it's called hatred, and it's called delusion. But all spiritual traditions have similar words for these things. How we can get past that and get back to what we all know we're supposed to be doing, which is caring for each other and caring for the planet.
Well, that is so well said. And when I went to a memoir writing group, and I read a piece of on care, and the housewives that had not had jobs wept for the same reason, because their lives were meaningless in this society. Their lives were meaningless because all they did was take care of their kids and raise. They were just housewives. I was only a housewife. And the women's movement did it, as well as the dominant culture did it as well. And so it's really about understanding how important, how deeply, deeply important that is to life. And I'll tell you the story about how I got this piece of this, because I came to this from nursing, and nursing has created the entire model that I put on the board, the whole, which I didn't even get into, but in nursing there is no separation between the physical and the empathy. To answer your original question, you can't care if you're not caring, because you scare the heck out of the patient. Truly, because if they're completely disabled, they think that you're going to harm them or leave them or yell at them or not take care of them. So there is absolutely no separation. When you're really looking at the total spectrum of care, which is about caring for somebody that needs support or something. People need caring because they're not caring for themselves, for some reason. I mean, there's also self-care. But here's how I got this. All my time in nursing, I had no clue of what care really was, and why I said the mystery and the transformational part of care, and how we all got to this, how I got him to let me talk when I was talking about something really mundane and not a new story about the universe.
This is a new story about the universe.
It is a new story about the universe. It is, absolutely. Well, anyway, here's how it happened. I quit teaching at a university and I moved to Whidbey. And I started raising ducks. There were little ducks at Senex and nobody wanted them, and I took all 6 ducks. So I have this little flock of ducks and I know nothing about ducks, so I bought a book about how you raise ducks. Okay, so anyway, one day, I'm away. I'm over taking care of Wilma, who I took care of for 6 months. I get this phone call. The eagle got one of our ducks, and he has a puncture. Okay, I'll be right home. So I come home. And the story is that there was an eagle that grabbed one of our ducks, and our Labrador went out and scared off the eagle, and Mary yelled, "Drop the duck!" And the way Mary got her students to do what she said, the eagle drops the duck. So then Mary and the dog are chasing this poor duck around the yard, trying to get this, and the duck's got blood coming out of him. And so I, Nurse Jackson here, she hands me the duck with the puncture, and his whole crop is splayed open. So I take my magic ointment that I have, and I put it in there, and I wrapped it up with gauze, and the next day we took it to Dr. Parent, and Dr. Parent gave us some antibiotics, and for 2 weeks I peeled the duck and put on my ointment, wrapped him with gauze, held him. Somebody said to me, "Well, why didn't you just eat it?" And here's why. What I realized was that a dead duck will feed me for 1 meal. A live duck provides protein for 280 eggs a year. And it isn't just humans that need life. But if we're talking about sustainability, if we're talking about community, the only place we can have life is where life exists. Otherwise, you have to cart it in from somewhere else. If you don't have water, you have to cart it in. Whoops. Life regenerates. Life is the only thing, if you think about it, I can't think of anything else, that you can have a seed, and seed will convert energy into matter and grow you a fruit tree. An egg will convert energy into matter and grow you a new duckling. A human will take one tiny, tiny seed and produce something brand new. Well, now that is a miracle. That is a miracle. And it's, when I think about care, and when I thought about care in that way, care is what happens in the life universe. It's when an agent, some agent, provides something to a receiver. It is, in my view, the essential relationship in the universe. And that was the definition that I came to when I was after that, and when I realized that this thing that we have so demeaned and put down, that we've associated it with women, we've associated it with blood, we've associated it with the base things of the earth. Without compost, you don't have life. Without mother's milk, you don't have a baby, unless you have Nestle's. But in this universe that we're having to survive, civilizations, every anthropologist will tell you, are not sustainable. They never have been. And so we're going to have to figure out how to sustain life where we are, in the community, in the town, in the family. And when I hear Ross, when I hear you talk about that, I had a total breakdown one day over at Carol's house when I thought Transition Whidbey was going to fold. Because my hope, my deep spiritual hope rests in, can we on Whidbey create a sustainable community where we can support each other and survive the oncoming chaos that's going to hit us? And can we do it in such a way that we're also supporting and not taking away from other people in the world, other communities in the world. So that is the conundrum that I see us in, that we have to understand the depth of how important life is and how important care is to the sustaining of life. And, you know, animals give care. Animals give, I mean, we wouldn't have animals if there wasn't care. We wouldn't have animals, Mary will tell you, Mary studies chimps, she studies primates. She will tell you about caring among primates. It's a human trait, but it's also a trait that is universal in our whole ecological system.
Well, we are animals, as much as we would like to deny the fact. Humans are very much members of the animal kingdom and the roots of what we call care. Whether you're going to look at it at the neurobiological level and hormones like oxytocin or cortisol, and animals, non-human animals have those things too. And so there's a great wealth of information that's becoming available to us about care in non-human animals, empathy, compassion. If you want to really read some heartbreaking stories, which you're probably just dying to do, particularly after tonight, read about grief in non-human species. Read about grief in elephants, in chimpanzees, in bonobos, and also very touching stories about nurturing and care.
In dolphins.
In dolphins and whales and elephants and yes. So I just wanted to, I wouldn't be doing my job as the physical anthropologist if I didn't interject that. And the question of the other spiritual traditions has come up about where we humans, where do humans fit vis-a-vis other species and things like that. And I think it's instructive. What came to mind immediately was Egyptian civilization, where many of the gods were non-human. Bastet. Go home and ask your cat about Bastet.
They'll tell you.
My cat thinks it's an
That's all.
That's right. They all think they're incarnations.
And now where's wet food?
Last question. Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was wondering, trying to tie it together, I'm hearing you say that women's work is essential and that they need to be in the dialogue of discerning how we can contribute to the needs of our people, right?
That's right. And they need, and that the work needs to, that men just need to be curious.
Okay. So that isn't helpful for me. What I would like the male part of me is saying, well, what are the needs specifically that you have in mind that you would like to see women honored and respected in the conversation so that I can be free to participate? So it's not necessarily...
Would you ask that again? Because I'm really not sure what you're asking. What are the needs that women have to be recognized, or what kind of work am I talking about?
I'm trying to voice a male curiosity.
Uh-huh.
And the male curiosity is saying, I'm hearing that women need to be brought into the conversation where it matters in terms of impact, what choices we make in terms of our limited resources, in terms of our limited abilities, and the limited volunteers. So the question would be, what do you imagine would be useful, immediate, and something that could be done? So that I, as an individual, can be a choice in saying, that sounds like a reasonable need, maybe I'd like to do that. So for me, if it's a general thing like bring the women into conversation, I've been hearing that for 40 years, and I've been trying to honor that and to listen to that. And I'm astounded that my children they sort of assume They don't no longer realize that the hard